Hello and welcome to American Football Bets. I'm your host Lewis, and today we'll be going over my game tips for week 2 of the NFL season. As always, please gamble responsibly. Link is in the description below. Please like and subscribe. It takes just 2 seconds of your time, 2 clicks of a button, and really makes a huge difference to the channel. We'll be having weekly videos like this, so please subscribe for more content like this if you enjoy it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So just a very quick overview from my Game Week 1 tips, and my nap of the week came in with Austin Ekeler rushing his over against the New York Giants with most of the money on this bet. We had a profitable week, which is good start to the season. My next best bet of the week was just short of coming in with Saquon Barkley rushing for 60 yards, despite us having him on the over at 96.5 yards. And with that being contained within the ACCA, we also had that, unfortunately, was the first leg that narrowly let us down on the 20-1 bet, with the other legs of DeAndre Swift rushing under 54.5 yards and Travis Etienne to rush over 40.5 yards, both coming in. So with last week covered, let's look ahead to my NAP, my next best, and my accumulator and total points over under bet that I have for this week. Just a quick note of how I've made the choices for this week's bets for Game Week 2. Obviously, when making these selections, you have to take into account the current roster and some of last week's performances. We still have an incredibly small sample size of data from Game Week 1 only, of course. So a lot of weight is still given to last year's performances. And in cases where the roster remains mostly unchanged for teams, and especially where their Game Week 1 performance suggests the same strengths and weaknesses as we saw from last season, those are certainly the teams to target, as predictions for those teams tend to be more reliable because we are able to look at a larger sample size. Then for those teams, I narrow down the fixtures I'm interested in betting on by looking at the teams playing each other that have opposing strengths and weaknesses. For example, are there any teams that are particularly good for rushing yards, playing teams that allow a lot of rushing yards? Are there any teams that are particularly good for passing yards, playing teams that give up a lot of passing yards, etc., etc.? Now that's explained, let's look at this week's picks and betting angles in more detail. So I've broken up this week's bets into my NAP, my next best, my ACCA for the week, and a couple of bonus bets. My first NAP for the week was actually shared on the American Football Bets X account, Twitter account, done last minute, which was Josh Jacobs for Green Bay to rush for over 60 yards, which came in during Thursday night football game. My next nap for the week, for the remainder of the weekend, is going to be looking at the Bengals playing the Jaguars. And this is a perfect matchup for passing yards for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, with the Bengals being the top team last season for passing yards across the entire NFL. The Jaguars also being the NFL team last season who let up the most passing yards in the NFL. The Bengals averaged 272.9 passing yards per game last season, and the Jaguars let up 257.4 passing yards per game on average. The Bengals typically start slow to the season, as we saw again last week against the Browns, despite the Bengals winning. And the Jaguars looked improved against the Panthers, but this is still a matchup that I'm looking to target. On the receiving end for the Bengals, we of course have Ja'Marr Chase as Burrow's number one wide receiver, but I think that a player where a price has been incorrectly placed on the market here is Noah Fant at tight end. Fant ended last season well, and although he was assumed to sit behind Gesicki this season at the Bengals, that didn't appear to be the case in week 1, and he even had a receiving touchdown from Joe Burrow. There were only 4 games last season when he was at the Seahawks when Fant received for less than 21.5 yards. He received 26 yards from Burrow last week, and now we're against the Jaguars team with a lackluster defence against the passing game. So I see no reason why Fant wouldn't be receiving more than 21 yards this week. And so my nap for the week is Noah Fant for the Bengals to receive more than 21.5 yards at odds at around evens. It'll be interesting to see how Burrow continues to use Fant, but having caught 4 of his 5 targets last week, and he achieved a receiving touchdown as I mentioned, it looks to me that Fant will be one of the key showings in this offense behind Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. My next best bet of the week turns to the Lions against the Bears, and the Lions have a huge chip on their shoulders, having lost against the Packers in Game Week 1, and they now go against their other divisional rivals, the Bears, in Game Week 2. Although the Packers managed to shut down the Lions' run game in Week 1, they did the same to the Commanders on Thursday Night Football just gone, so that outcome is probably more of a reflection of the Packers' solid defence this year rather than any weaknesses in the Lions' run game. The Bears' run defence will not be anywhere near as strong as the Packers, so we can expect to see Jahmyr Gibbs to run with a vengeance against the Bears this weekend. The over for Gibbs' rushing yards this weekend is 68.5 rushing yards. There were just 5 games last season where he didn't achieve that many rushing yards in a game, and of those 5 games, most were very close to that number. The Bears ranked 27th in the league for rushing yards allowed last season, allowing 136.3 yards per game. And last week they allowed 120 yards, which gave us the first glimpse suggesting that their run defence is not much improved this season. For all those reasons, I think the over on Gibbs to rush for more than 68.5 yards is a solid pick this weekend. Now for the Week 3 ACCA, in addition to the 2 legs we've already mentioned, there is one more leg in this fairly safe, at least as safe as far as accumulators go, threefold ACCA. The odds for this accumulator come out at around 7 to 1 or 8 to 1 depending on what bookies you choose to go with. So the final edition for this threefold looks at the matchup between the Ravens against the Browns this weekend. It was interesting to hear Lamar Jackson's interview after his game week 1, suggesting he was suffering from calf cramps and he was drinking pickle juice, I think, on the sideline, which to me suggests we could see Derrick Henry take an even greater load in the run game in game week 2. And even not, I still think Derrick Henry will be rushing for a lot of yards in this game. His over-under line this week is around evens at 94.5 yards. I'm putting a bet on Henry rushing for over 94.5 yards this week. Last week he rushed for 169 yards, which is almost double, frankly. And there were only 3 regular season games last year where Henry played over half the offensive snaps at least, where he rushed for less than 94.5 yards. So this line seems very low to me. This week he's against the Browns defence, who last season ranked 21st in the league for defending against the run. And although they didn't let up many rushing yards last week against the Bengals, we know that the Bengals offence is heavily focused on the passing game, as we've discussed earlier in this video, and it's not focused in the rushing game at all. So that's not a particularly surprising outcome. For those reasons, I'll be betting on Derrick Henry to rush for over 94.5 yards this week. And although I'll be placing all 3 in an accumulator, I've also got each of these selections in their own individual bets as singles this week. So another pick I have this week looking to get an edge against the bookies is looking at the under-over market total points, and specifically the game between the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. Last week both teams scored a combined 21 points, 8 of which were in garbage time. Neither of the offences look particularly strong, and I think the defences for both teams will cancel out the opposing offence this week. This is a trend following from last season as well, where Miami averaged 20.3 points per game and the Patriots averaged just 17 points per game. If those averages and last week's performance is anything to go by, then I'm confident at placing a bet at around evens for this game to go under 43.5 total points. So that's it for today's picks on the channel. Thanks very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. It takes just a moment of your time and helps this channel a ton. If you're going to be placing any of the bets I've mentioned or have any other picks for game week 2, then please let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure to respond to every comment that is left. We'll continue to have weekly tips now that the season started, so please like and subscribe for more. Follow us on the Twitter and X channel for any last minute bets that I may be placing ahead of game week 2, and see you next time.